Hey guys, what's up? I hope you're doing well. Hope you have a good summer. Today I want to give my thoughts on House of the Dragon, which just finished its second season. This is easily one of my most anticipated shows this year, and it surprised me in some unexpected ways. But before we get into the show, I did want to point out that there will be...
You're spoiling it! You're spoiling everything!
Now, if you are somehow unaware, if you haven't been living under a rock for the past, decade, you will know that this is a spin-off show of what I believe is the most popular television series of all time, that being Game of Thrones. Now, I'm not going to spend this video talking about the show because I assume most of you at the very least know what it is and what it's about. I've watched it, but I won't be comparing the shows too much because they both, I think, stand as their own thing. And you can definitely watch Hot D without any prior knowledge of Game of Thrones as a whole. All I will say is that Game of Thrones is a great show, and don't let the controversial ending stop you from watching it because it has some of the best that TV has to offer. But yeah, the ending, even if I want to be one of those people that doesn't mind the ending and think it's overhated, it's dog shit. So you do have to go in knowing that. But whatever, let's actually get into this new season. Hot D is a prequel to Game of Thrones that is set roughly 200 years before Daenerys was born and tells the story of a long insular succession war inside House Targaryen and how it affected Westeros, the people involved, changed the course of the Targaryen dynasty for years to come. And yeah, I think that the first season of this show, honestly, is quite fantastic and gives even some of the best seasons of Game of Thrones a run for their money. If you're one of those people that watched the last couple seasons of Thrones and missed when the show was well written, had complex characters, pit these characters against each other in a dynamic, strategic power struggle, then this season delivers on that. I really like the tragic and heartbreaking way that this season progresses as we basically see two childhood friends become tangled in a conflict that none of them really wanted, but now feel obligated to partake in because of decisions made by people who they once thought were their guardians. Even so, though, the people who put Rhaenyra and Alicent in these situations are entirely horrible people themselves. I really like the idea of Viserys Targaryen, this guy who never really wanted the crown and was basically only put there because the realm would never accept queen as the ruler. I like that his sympathy and love towards other people, which would normally be seen as a good thing, goes entirely against the philosophy of what gives a character survival in this world. Otto, however, he's kind of a prick, but still, some of his actions are justified. Daemon's actually one of my favorite characters to come out of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones history. You never really know exactly what his motives are, whether he actually cares for certain people. It kind of feels like he's always got his own interest aligned before anyone else, but at the same time, there are moments where he might actually maybe care for people. He's also just like a snarky, douchey badass, and characters like that will always be entertaining to watch in shows like this. The acting is great, the dialogue is top-notch, there are lots of fantastic story beats and interesting character decisions. It's just great, compelling fantasy television with incredible production value. Because goddamn, these shows are expensive as fuck. My only real gripe is that sometimes the story can feel a bit rushed in places, the pacing can be a bit too fast. Some characters are introduced for like a second and are seemingly really important and just die immediately. I get that they can't give every character a laboriously designed character arc, but I did think some people and events were a bit glossed over, like with Lena or Sir Harwin Strachan and a couple. But yeah, other than that, it's an airtight season. I was hoping that the second season could carry this energy over, even if I definitely have my doubts. And I hate to say that season 2 really wasn't as good as season 1, which is disappointing because it's definitely not a bad season by any means. I still like the show overall. There were definitely more lows, but undoubtedly some incredible highs, which is why this season to me just felt very frustrating. First off, probably the biggest issue I had with this season as a whole is the pacing, which I dare say is a bit atrocious at times. There are episodes here that are borderline boring as hell, but then there are also episodes that feature euphoric, dramatic, action-packed sequences that are jaw-dropping to witness. The fourth episode, aka Dance of Dragons, is a fantastic episode and easily one of the best in the show thus far, that is sandwiched in between two episodes that fail to be engaging throughout and honestly feature a lot of characters kind of meandering around or just not really doing anything all that interesting. A prime example of this is the goddamn Harrenhal plotline, where Daemon spends over half the season having bedtime nightmares and skulking around because he's mad that he isn't king. This season really kind of did Daemon dirty, if I'm being honest. Every time we cut back to him sitting around telling people to build an army for him, I was just sitting there waiting for the show to actually give him something interesting to do, but they never did. I'm not saying that all this development is bad, and I honestly do think it's an appropriate time for him to have this arc about his lust for power and place in the world, but the way they went about doing it felt so cliche and kinda lazy. I'd rather Daemon learn what it actually takes to be a ruler and the consequences associated with that through other characters or interaction with other characters or conflicts he has with other characters. And while there is a little bit of that in episode 7, most of it is relegated to him having visions that are literally just spoon feeding his development for him. I get that Harrenhal was haunted or whatever, and maybe the books did better, but I don't know, all the fantastical elements with Harrenhal didn't really wow me in any way, especially compared to some of the wacky time travel shit in Game of Thrones. Like, why was Daemon so uninvolved this season? Even his task to raise an army at the decrepit castle is mostly just him telling people to do what he says or he'll murder them. Can't he take charge in some way and have moments where he shows that he can be an effective commander? Those moments were in the first season, but they aren't really here at all. I did like Rhaenyra and Daemon's conflict in the first couple episodes, and seeing them at odds was interesting, especially since it was at the hands of Daemon making this bloodthirsty decision to send some dumbasses to go kill Aemon at King's Landing, which was absolutely insane and easily one of the most shocking moments in the show. I also liked the events that unfolded around the two Kingsguard brothers in episode 2, even if their struggle did sort of come out of nowhere. It was quite well done, super tragic and heartbreaking to watch at points. I also liked seeing just how far Kristen Cole has fallen. This once honor-bound guy who has forsaken and sullied what he stood for so many times that he carries so much shame he can't even fight for himself anymore. I honestly really enjoyed his arc this season. Overall, though, I think this season kind of failed to keep the tension up in moments where there weren't, like, actual fight, which might sound kind of weird, but what usually makes the wars and battles in this world so interesting is the ways in which the different sides prepare, either by showing their true character, swapping allegiances, or committing atrocities for the sake of the realm. There really wasn't a whole lot of that. Like I said, episode 4 was truly great, and the battle sequence there was absolutely awesome, and on the surface it seemed that it would completely change the tide of the war, but the next episode just has more of Daemon jerking off in Harrenhal, more of Rhaenyra sitting around, and certain characters grieving Rhaenys for like 5 minutes before they're like, oh, I'm fine again. Everything in King's Landing, what with Aemon making his first moves as Prince Regent, Aegon's dreadful fate, and Alicent realizing that's kind of all gone to shit, and the treachery and secrecy around what Aemon actually did at the battle was all very well done, but the other subplots dragged the pacing of this episode down quite a bit. But damn, yeah, Aegon, honestly, you can't not feel sorry for him this season. In the first half, he struggles to be this authoritative, smart figure that other people expect him to be, and in a brash but brave decision, he goes to exert his power as Cain and Aemon turns him into a cripple for it. Oh, and the alliance that he builds with Larys in this season, I really like it, and I'm very keen to see where they go in future seasons with that. Larys has turned to be a much more sympathetic character this season than I once realized, and although he was basically dormant in the first half, he was really great in the second half. Also, Corlys this season, like, I swear, you would forget he's there at times. He's the fucking sea snake. I get he was injured from last season, which we didn't see lick of, by the way, but, like, other than grieving for Rhaenys and, like, talking to a couple of shitmates that are literally impervious to the plot until the last couple episodes, he, like, didn't do jack shit. I hope that changes in the next season. I think it will, but he was pretty wasted in this season, I would say. Rhaenyra, though, I do think was pretty good this season. I liked seeing her deal with a council of people who just don't see her as a warrior, and seeing her feel pressured by them and her son to take action, take bloodshed. Her realizing that there was no way around it, speaking with Alicent, did take a bit long, but once she got active, she actually employed some pretty interesting tactics to get the upper hand. Also, and I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I actually like the romance that is set up between her and Mysaria. I saw a lot of people complain about this online. This episode came out, and man, it was a hailstorm of just complete vitriol from both sides, honestly. And I saw them complaining about the fact that it kind of came out of nowhere, and that some people were saying it was an insult to the books or something. Look, if you're mad because they changed the source material, I don't know, I can't really fault you for that. That's kind of your own thing. I respect your opinion either way. I'm not that familiar with it. People who are saying that it's dumb and makes no sense and it came out of nowhere, y'all are smoking something, because it makes perfect sense to me. After Daemon leaves in spite, Rhaenyra grows a strong bond with Mysaria as she helps her play nice with the townsfolk to get them on her side, and gives her advice, basically acting as hand. And in that void that Daemon left, she needed Mysaria to be there for her in that moment of comfort. I mean, it just makes sense to me. But now let's talk about the last couple episodes, because most of the compelling storytelling lies in this runtime. Now, in regards to the small folk, I was a bit excited to see the war from a different perspective, especially in a show that definitely focuses more on the conflict within the royal families, but admittedly, most of it was a bit slow and undercooked. Every time I cut back to this, I was kind of just waiting for the central plot to come back into focus. That is until episode 7, which is where the Red Sowing takes place. In a desperate and risky decision, Rhaenyra calls upon the people of King's Landing who have any Targaryen blood in their veins, any bastard son, daughter, mistress, or paramour, and a bunch of poor, innocent, helpless individuals ride there to claim a dragon and either get the reward that they believe they deserve or help their needy families back at home. It's an extremely engaging story beat that really made everything click this season, you know? At least with the small folk people. The sequence where the dragons go around burying everyone who they deem unworthy to be their rider was very intense and super well done. This seems brutal, awesome, and a really nice change of pace that I really haven't seen before in any Piece of Thrones content. Seeing Alicent so downtrodden and in such a state of dismay was sad, but well acted. And though she made a lot of mistakes, you have a lot of sympathy for her. The Harrenhal plotline actually wasn't dog shit for a change, with the young Tully boy proving himself to be a rightful leader and Daemon actually learning something from him. Larys and Aegon strengthened their bond, and overall one of the better episodes of the season, I would say. The finale also has some great moments. I like that Lucerys is very wary of the common folk who are now writers, and I like how this makes him question what makes him special or even different from them, since he himself is a bastard child. Seeing him and Ulf butt heads was pretty fun as well. The scene where Alicent returns the favor and basically does almost the same thing Rhaenyra tried to do at the beginning of the season was pretty great and incredibly well acted, and I kind of did miss the scenes between those two, because at the end of the day, the driving force, the main conflict in this show stems from these two childhood friends locked into a desperate struggle to keep their families safe and bloodlines safe. At this point, they both have reasons to resent one another, but it's clear that even Rhaenyra still harbors love for her in some level, and the fact that Alicent considered for a second offering Aegon's head to secure her rule just goes a long way to show just how desperate her character has become. Really well done scene, really well acted. Fucking love this scene. Even though it was far too late in the season, I did like the development between Alan and Corlys with the reveal that he's actually a bastard child of Corlys, and probably other members of the crew are as well. It really sets up some interesting arcs for both of them in later seasons. Now, another thing, while I'm a fan and pretty intrigued by what exactly Helena will do now, since she basically revealed to Aemon that she has a dragon's dream and can see the future, I think the flip side of the coin, what with Daemon seeing the events that will transpire from the Son of Ice and Fire prophecy, is kind of annoying, and that's especially because that vision is what truly convinces him that Rhaenyra should be queen, which is weird because it sort of felt just like a last-ditch effort to keep Daemon on Rhaenyra's side, and it kind of contradicts what we see earlier in the episode when we see his reaction to that member of Rhaenyra's court talking about betraying her. Also, this may be a personal complaint, but I really don't like the fact that the Three-Eyed Raven and the White Walkers and Daemon with the Winter is coming line, we're basically completing the connection between Game of Thrones and this show. It's a bit disappointing because I really wanted these two shows to be two separate things and really just be their own complete stories that just took place at different times in the same world. I want the story beats to stand on their own and not rely on a show we've already seen to bolster the excitement. Not to mention, we already know how this whole prophecy ends. Are they going to try to retcon it in some way? God, I hope not. Just leave it be. It ended badly, but trying to fix it would be even more disastrous. And the episode ends with this incredible montage of all the characters and armies suiting for battle. Everyone knows their role. Everyone has been building to this moment, and the episode's over. Really? Look, this episode may have been really good in the grand scheme of things, but it was not a good finale. This is just completely unsatisfying, especially since the first season had 10 episodes and this season only has 8. Why not spend 2 more episodes this season on this giant siege of King's Landing? Maybe you would have made this season too expensive, or the showrunners have something else planned, but making people wait for like 2 years is a huge ask. I don't know, man. I am looking forward to this new season whenever it drops, but it feels less like I'm salivating for new content and more that I feel starved and in desperate need of the content I should have gotten. One more personal complaint I have is that while yes, the show still has moments that are gruesome and has weighty moments, like when the dragons are burying those people or when, you know, that child was slain in the first episode, it did feel rather tame. I mean, think about the first episode of this show, where you see that jousting match, and Viserys makes that harrowing decision to cut the baby out of his wife's womb. I mean, I'm not saying that I want to see like guts flying everywhere the entire runtime, but I feel like the mature elements and just the brutality and the violence is what gives Game of Thrones and this show obviously like an identity and adds a lot more weight to these scenes. It kind of felt like the show didn't really have enough of those moments. Look, I'm not saying I just want to see more nudity and more tits everywhere. Okay, I'm not saying that. Well, maybe I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the show kind of needs that sense of urgency again that it once had with the mature content, with the mature elements, because it feels like a lot of the characters should die in more brutal ways. That's just the way the Game of Thrones operates. If you make a mistake, if you screw up, then you should be punished for it severely. That's just the nature of things in this world, and I feel like the show kind of lost a little bit of that this season. Again, personal complaint, but that's just my 2 cents. Okay, so all that being said, I still enjoyed the season, but I definitely had a lot of issues. Obviously, the show still has great writing, even if it did falter at certain points. Most of the characters are still compelling, or at the very least well acted. The production value and the way the show is helmed is so spectacular. There's always this grandiosity to the shots that make the show feel larger than life, but also very dirty and lived in, especially in scenes outside the castles or any scene with the dragon in it. But yeah, the season really did struggle to get to the point, and just because there are more dragons doesn't make the show better necessarily. But overall, I'm feeling a 6.5 out of 10. I still like the show, and I do think the showrunners will learn from the mistakes they made this season, and next season will bring the payoff that we need. Okay, so that's it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this thing, whether you agree or disagree with what I said. Were you disappointed by this season, or did you love it? Also, I did watch Deadpool & Wolverine and Long Legs last month, but I haven't made a video on them because I probably won't. But if you guys want that, just let me know. I may also check out the new Alien movie when that releases this month. Lots of big albums dropping later in this month too, so expect more uploads before the semester starts back up again. Please like and subscribe and click the notification bell and all that. Alright, have a good day, stay healthy, stay hydrated, and yeah, see ya.